So, what I'll do is give you a little bit of insight into myself and who I am, which I did this morning, and then talk a little bit about why this stuff is important to me, because the question was asked, why do you care about changing the world? What motivates you? And I'll say, well, it's a little hard to answer in a short moment, but I figured, well, the question was asked, so I'll answer it. And hopefully if you see what underpins my motivation to some degree, you will hopefully be inspired to continue to do the good work that you're obviously already doing. So my name is Derrick Nana Kwesi Abaka Ashong, also known as DNA. I was born in Ghana, West Africa. As a little boy, I moved to Brooklyn, New York. When I was 8 years old, I moved to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. When I was 12, I moved to Doha, Qatar. And I returned to the United States at age 15, 16. I did my junior and senior year of high school in the States, and I went to Harvard as an undergraduate. Now, given that I grew up in all of these different places, this idea of identity was always important to me. And it was very important to my parents. And my parents wanted me to remember where I was from, but also to remember that I was living my life for something bigger than just me. And one of the ways that they did it is by retaining the culture. Yengera Assassini. This is our land. It is a great treasure that was given unto us. It was bought for us with the blood of our ancestors. Now the time has come for you and I to do our part for our motherland. Let us not let selfishness or lack of love of country come in between us. Whether this land will succeed, whether this land will fail, the life of the people will show. I was raised as a global citizen. I had a chance to see what it was like to be in a number of different worlds. And at an early age, I had to wonder, where did I quite fit? I didn't grow up with a particular allegiance to nation state per se. I didn't grow up with an allegiance to a particular ethnicity. I didn't grow up to an allegiance to a particular religious background. I grew up in a family with an Anglican and a Presbyterian in an Islamic country, going to school with a bunch of Hindu and Buddhist kids. When I was growing up, the lines that demarcate you from I were framed a little bit differently than what many people experience. And it was an amazing experience for me to grow up as a child of the world. But it had its pros and cons. And I remember when I was in the 10th grade in the Middle East, there was an invasion of a neighboring country, Kuwait. And at the time I was in New Jersey with my parents. My dad was back in Qatar in the Arabian Gulf. And they had to decide, oh my God, there's been this invasion. Should we stay? Because the spot could get a little bit hot. Should we go back and be with my dad over there, or should he come back to the States and we all chill out here? And we decided the family had to be close together. That's where he works. We went back there. And I recall one day in particular, when we're sitting in, I believe it was biology class, and there was an explosion and the whole building shook. And everyone freaked out. Now mind you, there's only half of the school still there. So my class is relatively small. We all rustle, go out, grab our things, take the gas mask out of the bag, just like you've been trained, put it over your head, pull it over, breathe, breathe, breathe slowly. And you open your eyes, and for the first time, you notice the kids who have gas masks and the kids who don't. Right? This is not something you can go and buy at CVS. Your government issues it for you. And if you come from a nation whose government does not have the resources or the political heft to get somebody to assist, you go without. I was 15 years old, and I'm sitting there looking at my friends and realizing that if today the gas were truly to hit the fan, some of us will watch our friends die. Would I give you my mask? Because one of us is definitely not going to make it. We were lucky. It turned out not to be a gas attack. But at 15, completely changed my life. I thought to myself, why should a kid have to ask himself that question? Would I give you my mask? And I had this feeling that somehow our leaders had not quite done the job that they should do if children were being forced to be in those sorts of positions. I know kids who've been through much worse than that, but that was a moment of epiphany for me. And it led me to understand that our world needed to be changed. It wasn't an option. It wasn't something cute to put on a slogan. It wasn't the politically correct thing to say or do. It was a fundamental necessity. And that if you didn't understand what I had been through, then it was my duty to educate you about why we need to change our world. That's what motivates me. I remember that moment, and I'll never forget. There comes a certain point when you look out into the world and you really got to ask yourself some questions, some significant questions. And I think we're at a moment in this day and age where a new generation really needs to stand up and be counted. The generations that have preceded mine have done a lot to lay the groundwork for the world that we live in. At the same time, not enough has been done. I look at the United States in particular today, and I look at the degree of political animosity and strife that we hear about on a regular basis. I look at the degree of misinformation. I look at the kind of nihilistic approach to leadership where people will say almost anything in order to be in power, to get power, to retain power. I look at the degree to which people are willing to lie and use fear to keep a citizenry in line. And to, in particular, pursue certain narrow interests. You want to fix the healthcare system? They're going to kill your grandma. That's what they're going to do. They're going to kill your grandma. That's why they want to do this healthcare thing. It's all about killing grannies, because you know that's why people run for office. You ain't never killed a grandma before? Join the Congress. Right? That's the motivation of the government. Or at least this is what's presented to people. And people in the absence of knowledge, otherwise, in the absence of a real sense of political acuity and understanding, are like, well, I'm not sure. What does it mean? And these people that I trust and look up to are telling me they're going to kill Granny. That doesn't sound good. I defy anyone in this room to point out to me the moment we reach when our politicians are lining up our elderly in the streets for execution. It's never going to happen. But serious people put this stuff out there. Then meanwhile, they'll talk about we have concerns in the country. We've got a federal deficit, it's huge, our annual budget is way in debt. Massive issues, we've got to address them. One party gonna come and say, we got budget problems. What's the solution? We're gonna cut your taxes. Get the government out of your life. Other parties gonna come and say, we got massive debt issues. What we're gonna do, we're gonna spend more money. Make your life a little sweeter. You ain't got to pay. And it would seem that an entire generation has come up that is concerned with living a life of comfort, even if the bill is going to be passed on to their children and their children's children. And we will elect people who will tell us what we want to hear as opposed to what we need to hear. That is why I'm so interested in the next generation. Not because I don't value what my parents did for me, but because I'm beginning to see that we need to have some new voices in the mix. It's time that we start doing things out of a sense of convenience, out of a sense of the interest of my company, out of the sense of the interest of my community, out of the sense of the interest of my party. Because this is our land, bought for us with the blood of our ancestors. Whether this land will succeed or whether this land will fail, the life of the people will show. I want to see more people showing a better aspect of how we might live in this world. And that is what I try to convey to people. And I see that that is the work that you are trying to do here. So I thank and commend you for what you're doing. And I encourage you to continue to speak openly, particularly with members of the next generation, and even some of the members of your own. Because if we can get to a society that is willing to speak truth to power, and that is motivated enough to know that our children should not grow up in fear, and that we are going to leave this world better than we found it, if we can get to the point that this, our land, has enough of us committed to the success of it, rather than just of ourselves, then I believe we will have the opportunity to give that land into new and good hands. And our future will be bright indeed. Thank you for listening.